A German shepherd pushes through freezing rain, clutching a battered backpack in its mouth. No leash, no owner, just a soaked, silent mission. When a young woman stops to help, she expects a stray needing shelter. But what she finds inside the bag, it doesn't just break her, it changes everything. Some moments in life make you stop cold, not because they're loud or dramatic, but because they whisper something deeper, something you can't ignore, something that pulls at your heart, even if you don't understand why yet. That's what happened to Emily, a 27-year-old graphic designer from Portland. One rainy evening, soaked and tired on her walk home, she saw a dog, a German shepherd, alone, dripping wet, carrying something strange in its mouth. She could have ignored it. She almost did, but she didn't. And that one decision, to follow instead of walk away, unraveled a story she still can't explain without crying. It was the kind of rain that didn't just soak your clothes. It soaked into your mood. You know those days where the sky feels too low, like it's pressing on your shoulders, where every drop feels colder than the last. And even if everything's fine, something just feels off. That's what Tuesday felt like. Emily had already fought through the day, emails piling up, clients being difficult, lunch getting cold before she had time to eat it the usual. But now, walking home in soaked sneakers, dodging puddles that were way deeper than they looked, she just wanted it to be over. Her umbrella had flipped inside out twice. The wind snapped it so hard she gave up and stuffed it in a nearby trash can. Now she was walking bareheaded under sheets of rain, shivering with each gust. Portland's rain wasn't romantic, like the movies made it seem. It didn't come softly or rhythmically. It came sideways, mean, relentless, and freezing. Emily cursed as a car sped past, splashing up a wave that hit her jeans. Great, just what she needed. She wasn't far from home, maybe 10 more minutes. She clutched her tote bag tighter and kept her eyes on the sidewalk. That's when she saw movement, just ahead, across the intersection. At first, she thought it was a person, a shadow, hunched, moving oddly in the rain. But as she got closer, squinting through the water streaking down her face, she realized it was a dog, big, soaked, shoulders heaving as it moved. A German shepherd, alone. That was weird enough on its own. But what made Emily stop dead in her tracks was what it had in its mouth. Not a stick, not food, not a ball or some toy. A backpack, an actual, human-sized backpack, dirty, sagging, half-zipped and dripping. And the dog was gripping it carefully between its teeth, like it was afraid to drop it. Emily blinked. The dog moved fast, its head low, eyes fixed ahead. No leash, no collar, no human nearby. It didn't look lost. It looked like it knew exactly where it was going. Emily hesitated at the edge of the sidewalk. She could keep walking, pretend she hadn't seen it. Dogs run off all the time, right? But something was tugging at her. Not just curiosity. It felt heavier than that. That backpack. Why would a dog carry something like that? She stepped off the curb and crossed the street. The shepherd was already half a block ahead, barely glancing around, moving with surprising focus. Emily picked up her pace to keep it in sight. The further she followed, the more wrong it felt. This wasn't a panicked animal. It wasn't searching or scavenging. It wasn't afraid. It was delivering something. What the hell am I doing? Emily muttered the words out loud, almost laughing at herself. She had no idea where this dog was leading her. It was raining harder now, the wind howling past empty bus stops and flickering streetlights. Her common sense screamed, "Go home. This isn't your problem." But her gut said something different. It wasn't just the weirdness of the moment. It was the sadness that radiated off that dog, the way its ears stayed flat, the way it kept glancing back, just for a second, like it knew someone was watching, like it wanted someone to follow. There was a story here. Emily could feel it, and something told her this dog wasn't just out in the rain by accident. She tightened her coat, clenched her jaw, and kept walking. The route the dog took wasn't random. It didn't stop to sniff, didn't wander. It passed food wrappers, other animals, open garbage bins, things any normal stray would have pounced on, but not this one. Instead, it turned down an alley. Emily hesitated before stepping in. The alley was narrow and dark. One broken streetlight buzzed above a dumpster, casting an eerie glow. Water streamed down the cracked pavement, forming shallow pools. The dog padded through like it had done it 1,000 times. Its paws splashed silently. The bag, still clutched in its teeth, swung slightly with each step. Emily followed. Halfway through, she spotted something strange. Chalk drawings on the wall, faded, washed out, but clearly there. Stick figures, a sun, what looked like a dog with a smiley face. Children had been here, maybe even recently. Her breath caught. She took a few pictures with her phone, just in case. Then the dog turned another corner. This was no longer a coincidence. Emily was sure now. The dog wasn't just wandering. It had intention. It walked like someone who had done this many times before. A ritual. Every corner it turned, every step it took, felt familiar, like it was tracing old memories. That bag, it was part of something bigger. Emily imagined a child, maybe the owner, giving the dog that backpack. "Take this home," they might have said. Or maybe something worse. A parting gift. A final goodbye. She shook her head. The rain was getting to her. Still she followed. After 15 minutes of winding streets, they reached a quiet block. The houses here were older. Some had boarded up windows. Some looked like they hadn't been lived in for years. And then the dog stopped, dead in front of a house on the corner. Paint peeling, yard overgrown, one porch light, flickering in the storm. The dog walked up the steps, slowly, carefully. Then it turned around, looked directly at Emily, and laid the backpack gently on the top step. She froze. Something about that gesture felt almost human, like it had just delivered a message. Emily's heart pounded in her ears. She stood there in the rain, staring at the soaked, silent figure of the German shepherd, sitting beside a crumpled, waterlogged backpack. The street was dead silent except for the rain. She felt something in her chest, not fear, not confusion, something older, a kind of grief she couldn't explain. The way the dog sat, the way it didn't bark or beg, it was like it had done this before, like it had brought that bag to this house more than once, waiting for someone who would never come. The wind howled louder. A sharp gust hit Emily, nearly making her stumble. She reached for her phone. 3% battery. No signal. Figures. She debated turning back. Maybe this was enough. Take the photos. Post online. Call animal control. But her legs wouldn't move. She stepped closer to the porch. The wood creaked under her feet. The dog didn't flinch, just kept staring at her. Then, she looked at the backpack. Something inside her told her this was it. Whatever she was about to find wasn't just a clue. It was everything. She bent down, water dripping off her sleeves, and slowly reached for the zipper. Her fingers shook. The zipper was half open already, soaked fabric, torn stitching. She pulled it the rest of the way. Inside she saw it, a tiny red hoodie, wadded up and stained, a folded up piece of paper, a crushed juice box, and at the very bottom, a photo, water damaged but still visible. She pulled it out. It showed a young boy, no older than 7, arms wrapped around the same German shepherd, both smiling, sitting on this same porch. The dog let out a low whine. Emily felt something in her chest break. She looked back down at the paper. It was a letter, written in the shaky, innocent handwriting of a child. "If you find Duke, please help him. He's all I had. I had to leave. My mom said we couldn't stay, but Duke always finds his way back. Please let him in." Emily swallowed hard. The rain didn't matter anymore. She looked at Duke, and in that moment, she knew this was not the end of the story. It was just the beginning. Emily's footsteps splashed softly on the wet pavement as she followed Duke through the fading daylight and relentless rain. The city around her blurred into a tapestry of grays and muted colors, drenched in the persistent drizzle that soaked through her thin jacket and clung to her hair. She tightened her grip on the umbrella, which fought the wind, flipping inside out again and again, but her eyes never left the determined dog ahead. Each block felt longer than the last, the streets quieter, emptier, as if the rain had driven away every other living soul. The steady sound of tires on wet asphalt and the occasional distant honk were the only interruptions in the otherwise hushed scene. Yet Duke didn't falter. His strides were purposeful, his ears alert, and his focus unwavering, clutching the worn backpack tightly in his mouth, as if it were a precious treasure. Emily wondered about the contents of the bag. What story was hidden inside this battered pack, carried faithfully through rain and time? Who was Max? Why was Duke so devoted to this bag, and to the boy whose name was written in shaky letters on the letter she had found? As they turned a corner, the cityscape gave way to an older neighborhood. The streetlights flickered uncertainly through the rain, casting long, wavering shadows on the cracked sidewalks. Old houses lined the streets, some well-kept, others abandoned or dilapidated, their paint peeling, windows boarded, or curtains drawn tight against the chill and damp. The smell of wet earth and decaying leaves filled the air, mixing with the faint scent of rain on asphalt. Emily's heart began to race. She could almost feel the weight of the story pressing down on her, heavier than the soaked coat, clinging to her skin. Duke's pace slowed as they approached a small, run-down house on the corner. The porch sagged beneath the weight of years without care. Its wooden boards warped and cracked. Faded graffiti marked the sides of the building, and the windows were shuttered, as if protecting secrets inside. A single dim light flickered in the grimy window by the door, struggling against the gloom. The dog climbed the creaky steps with careful grace and gently dropped the backpack on the top step. Then Duke sat down, his eyes fixed on Emily, as though silently asking, "Will you see what I carry?" Emily swallowed hard, kneeling beside the bag. The rain had soaked it through, leaving dark stains and softened patches where the fabric was torn. The faded crayon drawings on the backpack showed childish scrawls of sunshine, stick figures, and a little dog, likely Duke, attached to a plastic teddy bear keychain hanging from a zipper. Her fingers trembled as she unzipped the bag slowly. Inside, the contents were sparse but deeply telling. A folded blanket, soft and frayed, a juice box, its edges crushed and stained, a crumpled piece of paper, a photograph, and a tiny red hoodie, small enough for a young child. Emily's breath caught as she pulled out the photo. It showed a smiling boy, probably 6 or 7 years old, with bright eyes full of life and hope. His arm was wrapped lovingly around a younger Duke, both sitting on the very porch they were standing on now. The background was brighter in the photo, sunlight, laughter, and innocence captured in a frozen moment of time. Her eyes blurred with tears she didn't quite understand yet. Then she unfolded the letter, smoothing the creases. The handwriting was unmistakably childlike, the words raw and heartfelt. "If you find Duke, please take care of him. He's a good dog. He loves people and peanut butter. I can't take him with me. My mom is sick, but he's my best friend. Please don't let him be alone. Max." Emily pressed the letter to her chest. This wasn't just a lost dog story anymore. This was a story of love and loss, of innocence ripped away, of a child forced to say goodbye in the hardest way imaginable. But who was Max now? Where was he? Was he safe? Was his mother okay? The weight of unanswered questions pressed down, yet there was no turning back. Duke's eyes met hers again, steady, unwavering. They had to find Max. Emily stood slowly, wiping rain from her face with the sleeve of her jacket. The quiet stillness around her was almost suffocating. She looked back at Duke, who remained seated by the worn backpack, his dark eyes reflecting the faint glow of the street lamp. She took a deep breath. This small house, forgotten by the world, held secrets and possibly answers. The photograph and letter made it clear that Max and Duke shared a bond beyond words. But why was Duke out here alone, carrying these items through the storm? Emily's mind raced with possibilities. Had Max run away? Was he lost? Or worse, was something terrible happening behind these boarded windows? Cautiously, she moved toward the front door. The wood was damp and the paint peeled in layers like old scabs. She knocked softly, then again. Silence. A shiver ran down her spine. Then, from a side window, a faint rustling caught her attention. A shadow moved quickly, retreating from a glass. Emily's heart hammered in her chest. She called out gently, "Hello? Is anyone home? I found Duke in this bag." No answer. The house seemed empty, abandoned to the years and the rain, yet the light in the window suggested otherwise. Emily's fingers curled around the doorframe, her mind torn between fear and the urge to help. Suddenly, a soft whimper came from inside. Duke's ears perked up, and he stood, pressing close to Emily as if to say, "We're close." With resolve, Emily tried the door handle. It was unlocked. The door creaked open, revealing a dim, cluttered hallway heavy with dust and neglect. The smell of damp wood and stale air filled her nostrils. Stepping inside, Emily called softly again, "Max? Is someone here?" A faint noise led her to the kitchen, a small room with peeling wallpaper and a cracked window. There, in the corner, sat a little boy wrapped in a threadbare blanket, his wide eyes filled with fear and uncertainty. "Max," Emily whispered. The boy flinched but didn't run. Duke nudged closer, tail wagging cautiously. Emily knelt beside him, heart breaking at the sight of this small figure trembling in the cold. "It's okay," she said gently. "I'm here to help." Max's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm scared." Emily nodded. "I know, but you're not alone." She pulled her coat tighter around them both, feeling the warmth slowly replace the chill. Questions tumbled in her mind about Max's mother, his home, and the path that led him here. But first, she needed to get him somewhere safe. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. The first pale light of dawn peeked through the clouds, promising a new day. Emily glanced at Duke, whose loyal presence seemed to give Max strength. Together, they stepped out of the shadows of the old house, stepping toward hope and healing. Emily wrapped her coat tighter around Max as they stepped out of the dark, cramped kitchen into the faint light of early morning. The rain had finally ceased, leaving the air cool and fresh, tinged with the scent of wet earth and blooming wildflowers struggling through cracks in the sidewalk. Max's small hand gripped Emily's fingers tightly. She could feel the tremble in his palm and the way his body shivered beneath the thin blanket. Duke padded beside them, ever watchful, occasionally glancing up at Max with those deep, understanding eyes. The neighborhood looked different in daylight, less foreboding but no less worn. Trash cans leaned against curbs, a few broken toys scattered on overgrown lawns. Paint peeled from the sides of houses like dried scabs. Yet, in that softened light, Emily saw more than decay. She saw resilience. Max's eyes stayed downcast as they walked slowly toward Emily's car. Her mind was racing with thoughts and questions she wasn't sure how to voice yet. Why had Max been left alone? What was his story? And how long had Duke been carrying that bag through the rain, searching for someone to understand? As they reached the car, Emily opened the door, motioning for Max to get in. He hesitated, then slid inside quietly, clutching the backpack close as if it were his only lifeline. Duke jumped into the back seat without prompting, settling next to Max, who wrapped an arm around the dog. Emily started the engine, glancing at Max in the rearview mirror. His eyes, so wide and wary, flickered with a fragile hope. "Do you want to tell me about your mom?" she asked softly, breaking the silence. Max swallowed hard, his lips trembling. "She's very sick," he whispered. "We used to live here, but then everything got bad. The doctor said she needs a special hospital, but we couldn't go. My dad left, and I didn't want Duke to be alone, so I told him to carry my bag and find help." Emily felt tears sting her eyes. The weight of those words, abandonment, illness, loneliness, pressed down like the storm that had just passed. "You're very brave, Max," she said gently, "and Duke is a hero." Max managed a small smile, squeezing Duke's fur. As they drove away from the rundown neighborhood, Emily promised herself she would do everything she could to help Max and his mom. But first, she had to get them somewhere warm, safe, and full of hope. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, casting golden rays over the wet streets, an emblem of new beginnings after a long night. Emily glanced back again at Max, noticing how tightly he clutched the small red hoodie from the backpack, as if it was the last piece of comfort he had left in the world. The weight of that tiny garment made her heart ache. It symbolized everything lost, yet somehow still held on to. The drive was quiet at first. Max stared out the window, watching the city slowly wake up, his thoughts hidden behind a fragile silence. Duke lay curled at his feet, occasionally lifting his head to check in, as if sensing Max's unease. Emily wanted to give him time, space to adjust, but the questions in her mind wouldn't let her rest. After a few minutes, she gently asked, "Max, what happened to your mom? Do you want to tell me?" The boy hesitated, then nodded slowly. "She got really sick a long time ago. She can't walk much anymore, and sometimes she forgets things. The doctors say it's serious." Emily nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "That sounds really hard." Max nodded, his eyes filling with tears he didn't wipe away. "Dad left after Mom got sick. I didn't want to leave Duke behind, so I told him to keep the bag safe. I thought maybe someone would find him and help." Emily felt a wave of emotion swell inside her. This little boy, carrying so much on his small shoulders, still found the strength to care for his dog and hope for help. "We're going to find that help, Max," Emily said softly. "I promise." They pulled up outside a local shelter, a modest brick building with a welcoming sign. Emily had called ahead, explaining the situation. Warmth and safety awaited inside, but Emily knew the real journey was only beginning. As she helped Max out of the car, Duke jumped out eagerly, tail wagging. The three of them walked toward the shelter's doors, stepping into a brighter, kinder world. Emily stepped into the shelter with Max and Duke close behind her. The warmth inside was a stark contrast to the cold rain they had just escaped. Soft voices, gentle laughter, and the sound of other animals filled the air. It was a place built on hope and second chances. A kind woman at the front desk looked up and smiled when Emily explained the situation. "We'll take good care of Max and Duke," she said reassuringly. "Let's get them settled." Emily watched as Max's face softened for the first time since she met him. The shelter workers wrapped him in a cozy blanket and gave Duke fresh water and food. The dog's tail wagged slowly, a small sign that maybe, just maybe, things were starting to look up. Emily sat beside Max, who pulled out the little red hoodie from the backpack. "This was mine," he whispered. "Mom made it for me." "That's special," Emily said. "It reminds you she's with you, even if she's not here right now." Max nodded, his eyes shining with a mixture of sadness and hope. For the first time, Emily realized the story wasn't just about a lost dog carrying a bag in the rain. It was about love, loyalty, and the invisible threads that connect us even through the darkest storms. Over the next few days, Emily visited Max and Duke often. She helped connect Max's mom with medical care and found ways to support the little family through the shelter. The bond between Max and Duke grew even stronger. This dog wasn't just a pet. He was a guardian, a friend, and a symbol of resilience. Emily knew their journey wasn't over. There would be challenges ahead, moments of doubt, and days when hope felt fragile. But she also knew that sometimes the smallest acts, like a dog carrying a backpack through the rain, can change lives forever. Days passed, and Emily found herself returning to the shelter more often than she expected. Each visit brought a new glimpse into Max's world, the quiet bravery in his eyes, the gentle way Duke stayed by his side, and the fragile hope flickering like a candle flame. Max showed Emily the drawings he'd hidden inside the torn backpack, colorful sketches of his family, his dog, and the small house that had once been their home. "This is Mom," he said, pointing to a smiling woman in crayon. "And that's Duke." Emily felt the ache of loss and love mixed in every line. These pictures were Max's way of holding on to memories that were slipping away. One afternoon, as sunlight filtered through the shelter's dusty windows, Max spoke quietly. "I miss her so much. I wish she was better." Emily reached out, squeezing his hand gently. "I know, and it's okay to miss her. We're going to do everything we can." Duke let out a soft whine and nudged Max's arm, as if reminding him he wasn't alone. Emily decided to take a walk with Max and Duke around the shelter's garden, a small patch of green where wildflowers struggled to bloom. The three of them sat quietly on a bench. Max leaned against Duke, finding comfort in the dog's steady presence. Emily watched them and thought about how sometimes, in the hardest times, the simplest things, like a loyal dog carrying a backpack through the rain, can hold worlds of meaning. But beneath the quiet moments, Emily knew a storm was coming, a moment that would change everything. The hospital room was dimly lit, filled with the steady beep of machines and the faint scent of antiseptic. Max sat quietly beside his mother's bed, his small hand holding hers, while Duke rested at their feet, his eyes never leaving Max. Emily stood near the doorway, watching the fragile scene unfold. The weight of days, of rain, of fear, of hope pressed down on her chest. Suddenly, Max looked up, tears welling in his eyes. "Mom, please get better," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Please don't leave me." The mother's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, confusion gave way to recognition. She smiled weakly, reaching out to stroke Max's cheek. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." Tears spilled freely now. Tears of relief, of love, of a bond unbroken despite everything. Emily stepped closer, her own eyes glistening. She saw not just a mother and son, but a story of resilience, of unyielding hope carried by a loyal dog through the darkest storm. In that room, the worn backpack, the rain-soaked streets, the lonely journey, it all came into focus. It wasn't just a lost bag. It was a lifeline, a promise, a testament to the power of love and loyalty. Max squeezed his mother's hand tightly. Duke wagged his tail gently, and Emily knew, with every fiber of her being, that this moment, this fragile, beautiful moment, was the beginning of something new. In the days that followed, Max's mother slowly began to recover. She still had a long road ahead, but she wasn't walking it alone anymore. Emily helped arrange temporary housing through the shelter. She visited often, bringing warm meals, fresh clothes, even school supplies for Max. It wasn't out of obligation, but because the boy and his brave dog had become part of her heart. As for Duke, he never left Max's side, not once. He still carried the same worn backpack everywhere he went, but now it wasn't out of fear or loss. It was out of loyalty, out of love, like he knew exactly what that bag had meant and still meant. One afternoon, as the sun broke through a week of gray skies, Emily stood with Max and Duke outside their new little apartment. Max held Duke close and smiled up at her. "Thank you," he said softly, "for everything." Emily crouched beside him. "You saved each other," she said. "I just helped you get home." And with that, the dog who once trudged through rain with a memory in his teeth finally laid down his burden. Not because he gave up, but because his mission was complete. Sometimes, it takes a storm to bring people together, and sometimes it takes a dog. If this story touched your heart, subscribe for more powerful, real-life moments just like this.